Mr. President, we have a national emergency.
This is one of the things that we can shoot first and ask questions later. Normally you can't do that.
All of a sudden these trees started moving out of the way. They parted for me. And then I came out into this opening, and there where I saw Jesus Christ.
Back in 1927, an American socialist, Norman Thomas, 6 times candidate for president on the Socialist Party ticket, said the American people would never vote for socialism. But he said under the name of liberalism, the American people will adopt every fragment of the socialist program. He is more imminent.
James Madison, in 1788, speaking to the Virginia Convention, said, "Since the general civilization of mankind, I believe there are more instances of the abridgment of the freedom of the people by gradual and silent encroachment of those in power than by violent and sudden usurpations." When men were free.
Broadcasting live from a secret location buried deep below the earth, you're about to make a connection to the signs of the times. W. Dean Shook is live on the air right now.
And you're listening to End Time News. Thank you to our announcer for that wonderful introduction. I appreciate that so very much. And I am back by popular demand as your host, W. Dean Shook, bringing you the truth in the news. I appreciate it so very much, and I'm also proud to be able to come to you as a card-carrying member of the Flat Earth Society, according to President Obama, who says that skeptics of man-made catastrophic climate change, you know, the kind that Al Gore has pimped, of being ridiculed, scoffed, and dismissed sneeringly as deniers. I'm proud to be one of those. For years, anyone in public life who expressed doubt about the apocalyptic claims of government, the scientific establishment, and the popular-like lemmings treated like card-carrying members of the Flat Earth Society, and worse yet, dissident scientists who were categorically denied the ability to publish in scientific journals, let alone get government grants for research, yet doubts have persisted, driving one noble blogger to do something others have failed to do. Check the original official temperature records and compare him with what was actually recorded by the science establishment, the same establishment that's issuing these dire warnings of doom and gloom unless corrosive top-down action was taken to reduce carbon emissions worldwide. Well, this blogger was Paul Homewood. What he's found is shocking, and it's being called the fiddling of temperature data, one of the greatest scientific scandals of all time. He said when future generations look back on the global warming scare of the past 30 years, nothing will shock them more than the extent to which the official temperature records, on which the entire panic ultimately rested, were systematically adjusted to show the Earth was having warmed much more than the actual data justified. This according to Christopher Booker in the London Telegraph after reviewing Homewood's findings. Well, Homewood began by checking the temperature graphs for 3 weather stations in Paraguay. What he found was the recorded temperatures were simply reversed dramatically, from showing a cooling trend to a warming trend. After that, he checked more South American weather stations, found even more evidence of upward adjustments. Those bogus records were recorded by the U.S. government's Global Historic Climate Network and then broadcast by the Goddard Institute for Space Studies and National Climate Data Center, the very records scientists and governments use to justify their global warming claims. Homewood investigated the temperatures taken there, finding in nearly every case the upward temperature adjustments that have made climate change an article of faith for governments and scientists around the world. Well, on Friday, Barack Obama administration released a national security strategy claiming rising seas, worsening droughts, melting Arctic ice, and extreme weather events rang among the most potent threats to the U.S. national security, alongside of violent extremism, cyber attacks, and Russian aggression. He said at home and abroad, we're taking concentrated action to confront the dangers posed by climate change and to strengthen our energy security. The document says, declaring climate change as an urgent and growing threat to our national security. Of course, not all the scientists and politicians were fooled. There have always been thousands of dedicated scientists who express doubts about the data and the conclusions. Well, here at End Time News, we're doing our part to be green. We're trying to recycle and reduce our global footprint. Here's how we're doing it.
End Time Prophecy News is the only program on the air that runs on recycled chickweed ethanol, working to save the planet every day.
And thank you. I'm sure that will reduce our global footprint. Well, according to Reuters, Obama looks to raise $2 billion in climate change investments. The Obama administration on Tuesday set a goal of raising $2 billion in philanthropic investments to fight climate change, including technologies to slash carbon emissions. The Clean Energy Investment Initiative is seeking investments to try to bridge the valley of death. That's the gap in funding between research and development and the commercialization that holds back many clean energy startup companies. This according to Brian Deese, Deputy Director of the White House Office of Management and Budget. He said the plan requires no additional U.S. taxpayer money, but uses the conveying power of technical know-how of the Department of Energy, said Deese, who announced the plan at an Advanced Research Project annual conference outside Washington. The ARPA is an Energy Department office funding projects that have potential to revolutionize energy markets, but are too risky for the private sector to invest in initially. Now, Obama has made fighting climate change one of his top priorities. His administration will finalize first-ever U.S. rules to slow down carbon emissions from power plants this summer. Several groups have already made commitments to the initiative, according to a White House fact sheet. For example, the University of California's Board of Regents will allocate at least $1 billion of its endowment and pensions over the 5 years to investment in solutions to climate change. And as part of the plan, the White House will host a Clean Energy Investment Summit in coming months as a forum for foundation and institution investors to scale up investment of renewed energy innovation. Well, listen, the truth is, folks, we have to remember that Agenda 21 is based on climate change. Without climate change, they can't implement Agenda 21. Which of those of you who are not familiar with Agenda 21? It's the global initiative for global governance. It makes all countries on Earth subject to international law, rules, and regulations. Without climate change, they can't do that. Global governance? No wonder they're pushing climate change. Well, let's move on to some other news. Iran has been in our topics lately. It seems out of the Jerusalem Post that a Christian apologist, Don Stewart, believes the New Testament suggests that Iran, together with Russia, are posing a threat, while Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu may not have been able to convince Obama that Iran poses an existential threat to Israel. He does have at least one person who shares his viewpoint. Christian apologist Don Stewart believes that the New Testament suggests that Iran, together with Russia, poses a major threat not only to Israel, but to the United States as well. The Christian Post quoted Stewart as saying that in the Old Testament, Ezekiel 38 contains a prophecy in which Persia, which is modern-day Iran, and Rosh, which is the ancient name of Russia, have a military alliance in the last days. Stewart suggests that Iran, as Shiites, believe that they are divinely ordained to have nuclear weapons. Stewart, for his part, however, thinks that this prophecy is being fulfilled rather than something that can be stopped by sanctions or the threat of military action. He said it's like we're seeing foreshocks of a powerful earthquake that's ready to happen. The prophetic events are like dominoes closely stacked together. When the first domino falls, the others will fall in short order. Now, I think we have to realize that the situation in the Middle East is growing more dangerous every day. The Obama administration has had many opportunities to stop Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons, but so far he's failed. In fact, It appears to be enabling Iran, not trying to curtail them from their thirst for nukes. Well, let's come back to something here domestically. I've reported on this before happening overseas, but never this magnitude happening in the United States. 500,000 U.S. women are mutilated in this barbaric practice. This, according to the United Nations reported by WND, a disturbing population research bureau report, indicates that a number of women in the United States at risk of ritual female genital mutilation has doubled in 10 years, in tandem with the increase in immigration from Muslim countries in Africa. The practice, also known as female circumcision, is common in Muslim countries in Africa and the Middle East. The report from the Bureau indicates more than 500,000 women in the U.S. may have already been mutilated or could soon have the practice done to them. That's up from 227,000 in 2000. The 1997 NIH report placed the number of women at risk at 168,000 based on a 1990 consensus data. African immigration to the U.S. increased every decade since the 70s. The Census Bureau reports nearly 1.6 million Africans born now live in the U.S. The latest report on the practice concludes with the United Nations International Day of Zero Tolerance. The UN estimates 130 million women and girls in the Middle East and Africa have undergone some form of this procedure. While the UN and associate groups are working to end this barbaric practice, none of the official reports and statements mention the fact that Muslim religious leaders and scholars prescribe it. The official line is that there's no direct mention of the practice in the Quran, and hence no link to Islam. However, Islamic websites direct the reader to numerous scholarly references encouraging the practice. Indonesia, place of birth of Barack Hussein Obama, the world's most populous Muslim country, enshrines the practice in its health laws, and Islamic Foundation sponsors a mass female circumcision ceremony annually. Many of the women who are being brutalized see a connection to the region, even if those trying to save them from it don't. When directly asked about the link between Islam and the practice, UN program coordinators admitted that 50% of the women who have been victimized believe it's a religious requirement. And many Muslim religious leaders in the U.S. apparently don't oppose it, even though it's against the law. Jaha Durka, a survivor from Gambia who now lives in Atlanta, told WND, "We're reaching out to Muslim religious leaders here in the United States. Some don't want to talk about it to us because it's an issue they believe is religious. Some of them don't even let us into their mosques when knowing that we're coming." What a barbaric practice this is. So how do we handle this here in the United States? It's against our law to do this. Do we give them a pass? Or do we hold their feet to the fire? I'll say this. What if smoking peyote is claimed as part of a religion? Do we allow that? What if sex with kids is claimed as part of someone's religion? Would we allow that? Look, folks, we have to draw the line here somewhere. And I'd like to report another university on the side of political correctness. That according to the College Fix, the university spent $16,000 on campaign to warn students to watch what they say. It's called an exclusive language campaign, and it debuts at University of Michigan. Dozens of protesters plastered across the University of Michigan caution students not to say things that might hurt others' feelings as part of a new exclusive language campaign at the state's flagship public university to the cost of $16,000 to implement. Words declared unacceptable through the campaign include crazy, insane, retarded, gay, tranny, gipped, illegal alien, fag, ghetto, and raghead. Phrases such as, "I want to die," and "that test raped me" are also forbidden. University spokesman Rick Fitzgerald told the College Fix in an email to campaign aims to address campus climate by helping individuals understand that words can impact someone, to encourage individuals to commit to creating a positive campus community. Students have been asked to sign a pledge to use inclusive language and to help their peers understand the importance of using inclusive language, according to the campaign materials. Though only in existence for one semester, the Inclusive Language Campaign has maintained a strong presence throughout the university. Students roaming the campus frequently encounter posters of all sizes reminding them your words matter and asking questions such as, if you knew that I grew up in poverty, would you still use the word ghetto or ratchet? Representatives of the Exclusive Language Campaign did not respond to repeated requests for comment from the College Fix. Fitzgerald told the College Fix the university budgeted $16,000 for the campaign. The program comes at a time when the university has raised tuition fees for the last 2 years consecutively. And we'll have to make sure we watch it that we don't use those words. Well, it looks like the Washington Examiner must listen to End Time News, because one day after I reported on how North Korea could cause an EMP on the West Coast, today the Washington Examiner has published a story on how nuclear plants face EMP disaster as feds scramble for a quick fix. Federal agencies that regulate nuclear power stations are rushing to address a potential threat from electromagnetic pulse attack on the U.S. electric grid, which would cause nuclear power plants to melt down. The good news is the issue and proposed fix are easy. The bad news is that there's growing concern of an EMP attack, either from North Korea, including bomb or solar storm, would occur first. It focuses on cooling pools used to store spent but still radioactive fuel rods used to make power. Cold water must continuously flush through the rods. They can catch fire and explode, spewing killer radioactive smoke for miles. Federal agencies believe an EMP attack would knock the power grid out for months. Most nuclear plants are diesel-powered generators for backup power to the water pumps and only store up about 17 days of fuel. Members of President Reagan's former Star Wars team with the Foundation of Resilient Societies, they saw the problem at Japan in 2011's Fukushima nuclear disaster and recommended a switch from diesel to long-lasting solar power for the generators. That's when the alarm bells went off. Thomas S. Popick, president of Resilient Societies, told the Washington Examiner similar concerns were raised when New England's Pilgrim nuclear facility was forced to shut down during a blizzard. As a result, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission is considering the group's fix a rare embrace of an outside proposal. It's a national issue, said proponents, and retired Federal Aviation Administration investigator Brian Sullivan said the NRC needs to change its dangerous course. And with all of the news of global governance and a one-world leader, Putin has something to say about it. According to Bloomberg Business, Russian President Vladimir Putin struck a defiant tone a day after talks in Moscow with the leader of Germany and France failed to achieve a breakthrough in resolving the Ukraine crisis. Putin said Saturday at a meeting with the Federation of Independent Trade Unions in Sochi that Russia won't tolerate the post-Cold War global system dominated by a single leader. That type of world order has never been accepted for Russia, Putin said. Maybe someone likes it and wants it to live under a pseudo-occupation, but we won't put up with it. German Chancellor Angela Merkel and French President Hollande met the Russian leader for more than 5 hours Friday to discuss spiraling violence in eastern Ukraine between government forces and Russian-backed separatists. A breakdown of diplomacy may strain transatlantic unity in dealing with Russia as Europe's consensus on economic sanctions show signs of fraying. Now, there were some key words in here, and when I read this story, it made me wonder, what brought up transatlantic unity, and why would President Putin say that he's opposed to governance and a one-world leader? Well, the story mentions diplomacy may strain transatlantic unity. Now, in case you're not getting it, the transatlantic union is the same type of system Obama's trying to set up with Canada, Mexico, Cuba, and mainline U.S. all as one. You know, End Time Prophecy says there'll be 10 distinct entities that this one world leader or Antichrist will have control of. When in history have we seen these things being set up like this? This is something to think about. Now, you remember a couple updates ago, I told you about the Muslim Brotherhood declaring jihad one day after a meeting with the White House State Department. Well, according to Breitbart News, they're reporting now the Muslim Brotherhood comes to the White House. The Obama White House has finally released the names of the 14 Muslim leaders who met with the president that past week. Among the group, which included a comedian along with hijab-wearing basketball player and a handful of left-wing activists, there were a select few of individuals and disturbingly close ties to the global Muslim Brotherhood. As I previously covered, the White House confirmed that Azhar Aziz, president of the Islamic Society of North America, was one of the Muslim leaders that met with President Obama. The ISNA was founded in 1991 by members of the Muslim Brotherhood. ISNA checks deposited into an ISNA account for the HLF were often made payable to the Palestinian Mujahideen. The original names of the Hamas military wing, the HLF, sent hundreds of thousands of dollars to this Hamas leader. I believe this is called aiding and abetting the enemy. Aziz's bio also reveals him as a founding member of the Council of American Islamic Relations in Dallas-Fort Worth chapter. CARE also has allegedly funded money to Palestinian terror groups, was also started by members of the Muslim Brotherhood. Hoda El-Shethway of the Muslim Pacific Affairs Council was also in attendance in the Muslim leaders' meeting with the president. The MPAC, just like CARE and the ISNA, was founded by members of the Muslim Brotherhood. Their group was written off, often endorsed papers rejecting the United States' designation of Hezbollah and Hamas as terrorist organizations, and has insisted that the Jewish state of Israel be added as a state sponsor of terrorism. The group's former president, Salam Mayadi, has publicly encouraged officials to look at Israel as a suspect in the 9/11 attacks. Mohammed Majid also served as an imam in the Al-Dulles area Muslim society, which also in attendance at the White House meeting with the president, and senior advisor Ben Rhodes and Valerie Jarrett. And Valerie Jarrett, being of Egyptian descent, of course, had to be there because she's Obama's top advisor. So what are we doing to root out terrorists in the United States? Well, apparently 6 are indicted in St. Louis for aiding ISIS. And I'm going to take a short break, and right after that, we're also going to talk about how the FBI is being neutered in finding these Muslim Brotherhood members raising funds for terrorism here in the U.S. Right after this short break, you're listening to End Time News.
There is a sense in the world. There's a sense among believers. There's a sense among unbelievers. There's a sense among all peoples that things are unhinged. The Middle East is unhinged with uprisings, revolutions, and where's this heading?
How are followers of Jesus to relate to all of these things? How do they relate to biblical prophecy?
America is in spiritual, moral crisis. Values are changing, and so rapidly, that have not happened in the history of man.
How are level-headed, responsible Christians to relate to the testimony of the biblical prophets and the unfolding of chaos throughout the world?
Not just believers are wondering, is this a sign of the end?
Our enemy is not terrorism, because terrorism is but a tactic. Our enemy is not terror, because terror is a state of mind, and as Americans, we refuse to live in fear. Nor do we describe our enemy as jihadists or Islamists, because jihad is a holy struggle, a legitimate tenet of Islam.
5, 4, supporters of terrorism, or we and our allies risk losing the freedom we cherish. We must not let the jihadist government of Iran get a nuclear bomb. President Obama has had opportunity to stop them, but he's failing. Join with us and let's secure America now.
Hi, folks. Have you noticed the federal government and police departments are using drones for everything? Drones are expensive. They're hard to fly. It can take up to a week just to learn to make a drone hover. Not anymore. There's a new generation of drones that are not only affordable, but very easy to fly. Now, you can have your own personal drone, anything from a micro mini that'll fit in the palm of your hand, right up to a full-scale model, 10 inches in diameter like the model I have, the V949 Pro. Comes with a 6-axis, 4-rotor blade and an HD 2.4 camera mounted on the bottom. These drones are made of a space-age polymer. They're durable, and don't worry about crashing your drone. Replacement blades for this drone from the website are only $1.80 for a pack of 4. That's right, I said $1.80 for a pack of 4 replacement blades. You can also get an extra long life battery. This battery allows you up to a half hour of fly time with a maximum speed of 40 miles an hour. Have your own personal drone, and you can get all of this for under $70 if you go to the website, wdeanshook.com, and click on the banner on the webpage. You can get from 7 to 22% off your personal drone. It's shipped as a kit. You can be up and flying your own personal drone with an HD camera within a half hour. Come to the webpage, wdeanshook.com. Click on that banner and get your discount today. wdeanshook.com.
GoDaddy offers everything you need to make a name for yourself on the web, from domain names and website builders to complete e-commerce solutions. We've earned our place as the world's #1 accredited domain registrar by delivering world-class products at competitive prices and support them with industry best services delivered 24/7, 365. We're proud to serve our customers from locations around the world. Sign up now at wdeanshook.com and get your domain name as low as $5.99 a year. Sign up now at wdeanshook.com. Go, Daddy. Go, Daddy.
All right, thank you for allowing me that break. I appreciate it so very much. And as promised, WND is reporting 6 are indicted in St. Louis for aiding ISIS. 6 Bosnian Muslim immigrants to the St. Louis area have been indicted for sending money and military equipment to ISIS and Al-Qaeda. An indictment unsealed Friday in U.S. District Court in St. Louis said the defendants donated money themselves and in some cases collected funds from others in the U.S. and sent the donations overseas. But it gets worse. While investigations of ISIS presence and support are currently taking place in 49 of the 50 states, the indictment in St. Louis says 2 of the defendants used some of the money to buy U.S. military uniforms, firearms accessories, tactical gear, and other equipment which was shipped to the people in Turkey and Saudi Arabia and then forwarded to suppliers to terrorists. 3 of the 6 are naturalized citizens of the U.S. All were in the U.S. legally. 1 or more were in the U.S. as refugees. As WND reported in December, the government is planning to resettle 75,000 Sunni Muslims by Syria over the next 5 years. 9,000 this year alone. The indictment names Ramiz Hadzik, 40, his wife Sladina, 35, and Armin Harovic, 37 of St. Louis County. The indictment says that last July, Rosic tried to board a flight from New York to Syria to join the fight. 5 of the defendants have been arrested. The 6th is overseas, but the Justice Department declined to say exactly where. Not your business. In a new release announcing the charges, the U.S. Attorney's Office said the crimes of conspiracy to provide material support and providing material support carrying penalties ranging up to 15 years in prison, and conspiring to kill and maim people in a foreign country carries a penalty of up to life in prison. Well, maybe Hillary and Barry should take heed of that. But even in these efforts and investigations in 49 of the 50 states, it seems that according to an expert, the FBI has been neutered by the Muslim Brotherhood. And FBI Director James Comey contends that restrictions on information gathering are the main hindrance in uncovering ISIS conspiracies in the U.S. Claire Lopez, who served in the CIA for 20 years and is Senior Vice President for Research and Analytics at the Center for Security Policy, said the problem isn't with working-level FBI agents who know the jihadist threat is neutered in mosques. The hindrance is from high-level FBI management and the national security leadership. She said the FBI, for too long, has allowed itself to be influenced by operatives of the Muslim Brotherhood and its affiliates, whose objective is to neuter U.S. national security defenses. Lopez was responding to Connolly's recent comments that restriction on information gathering stemming from intelligence leaks by former national security contractor Edward Snowden have created barriers for law enforcement and the intelligence community. Comey made the comment as he revealed the FBI has opened cases in 49 of the U.S. states of people who are suspected of having ties to ISIS. Lopez said that when someone such as Michael Stanback, an assistant director for the FBI Counterterrorism Division, publicly complains that he cannot fathom the recruitment appeal of ISIS or understand why parents in the U.S. encourage their children to join ISIS, then, America, we have a problem. That means the FBI's top counterterrorism official has no idea how to identify and stop the ISIS recruitment process before young Muslims answer the call to jihad. Well, she noted that Steinbeck, which was one of the FBI's key figures in the Great Purge of 2011 and 12, when at the urging of the Muslim Brotherhood advisors, the FBI literally purged hundreds of pages of training curriculum to be used to educate agents about how Islamic doctrine, law, scripture inspire Islamic terrorism. The FBI, she said, banished the instructors whose knowledge of these things was deemed as threatening by the Brotherhood. Lopez said the move was an illustration of the Muslim Brotherhood's strategy outlined in a document entered into evidence at a terrorism trial to destroy the Western civilization from within by their hands. That means, Lopez says, we're going to be induced to destroy ourselves. And you'll want to read this full story at the webpage at wdeanshook.com because there's a lot more to this. And you may not believe this one. It seems the government has no problem identifying who they think is a danger. According to Breitbart News, Bloomberg suggests banning young minority males from gun ownership. I'm not kidding. This will also be on the website. I'm not making this up. Speaking to the Aspen Institute on February 6, Michael Bloomberg said cities should ban young minority males from owning guns, both as an effort to reduce crime and to keep those minority males alive. According to the Aspen Times, Bloomberg addressed a variety of topics, and after commenting on poverty and education, he discussed guns, of course. The Times reported that he said cities need to get guns out of the hands of persons who are male, minority, and between the ages of 15 and 25. He claimed that 95% of all murders fall into this category, and that taking guns away from them will not only reduce crime, but will keep them alive. Bloomberg said male minorities from the age of 15 to 25 do not have a good outlook on life. You think they're going to get killed anyway because of their friends are getting killed. He said also having a gun is a joke for them, that it's a joke to pull the trigger. Well, I'm really struggling to figure out why these progressives say things like this, and it's somehow not racist, and it's not profiling. And these are the same people who say that, like, Planned Parenthood is not racist, when in fact, all three are racist. How does this work? Well, I guess the University of Michigan will be pleased that at least Bloomberg didn't say insane, ghetto, or raghead. At least not directly. Well, according to Canada Free Speech, Mitch Wolf has written a piece that I'd like to share with you. He says Obama refuses to publicly condemn Islamic brutality by name. He goes on to say President Obama has been publicly condemned for his recent comments at a national prayer breakfast in Washington. During this service, Obama pointedly avoided condemning Islamic terrorist group actions, especially the brutal and barbaric actions of ISIS. Instead, Obama, like most Islamic terrorist apologists, tried to directly defend Islam by bad-mouthing Christianity and Catholicism. Obama made a point of reminding his audience of all the terrible things that medieval people did in the name of Christianity, like waging war during the Crusades, and Catholicism, torture and death during the Spanish Inquisition. Obama, in referring to recent events of Islamic terrorism, but not specifically naming it as such, said this: "Unless we get on our high horse and think this is unique to some other place, remember that during the Crusades and the Inquisition, people committed terrible deeds in the name of Christ, and in our home country, slavery and Jim Crow all too often was justified in the name of Christ. And yes, hundreds of years ago, terrible things were committed in the name of religion, but that's not the point. Islamic radicalism, Islamic terrorism, Islamic brutality, call it what you want. If it drinks like a camel, if it walks like a camel, it's a camel." Just recently, the world witnessed the horrific scene of a Jordanian pilot placed in a cage who was then burned alive by ISIS captors. The video of this horrible death was then distributed worldwide online. And it's been suggested this horrendous act was never performed by the Nazi war criminals, Dr. Mengele, and this act was clearly done in the name of Allah. Roger Simon, a well-known writer, had a brilliant explanation for why Obama primarily lectured his audience on the Crusades and slavery done in the name of Christ, while failing to publicly call Islamic terror to account. Simon suggests that we should first look at Obama's criticism of ISIS, which Obama described as brutal, vicious death cult that in the name of religion carries out unspeakable acts of barbarism, claiming the mantle of religious authority for such actions. Now, note the use of the word religion, not Islam, or the even more telling Mohammed, a warlord who married a little girl, not very much like Christ. Nevertheless, Obama can attack Christians and name them in speech, but he refuses to name Muslims. According to Roger Simon, the reason for Obama's conduct are these. Obama is not a religious person. He rarely goes to church except for political purposes. Obama is nominally a Christian person, but more importantly, he identifies emotionally from his youth in Indonesia, the madrasas, and from the ideological disposition with Third World Muslims. So now, Obama is confronted with those same Muslims behaving like barbarians across Africa and the Middle East and sometimes in Europe and in America. He believes Obama's reaction is shame. This is the same reaction for the majority of Muslims throughout the Islamic world. Shame. Islam has been described as a shame culture. This is the kind of society that will go berserk, violent, and murderous over a cartoon. Charlie Hebdo also took a great delight in mocking Jesus Christ, the Pope, and Jewish rabbis in every tasteless cartoon. But no representatives from this religion went on a killing spree against the Charlie Hebdo writers or editors. The argument is that Obama is very much a part of the Muslim culture, and the suggestion that Obama is genuinely and quite deeply ashamed of the religion he, in part, came from. The problem is that Obama, President of the United States, one of the most powerful people of the world, cannot adjust to or accept the calamities that Islam's causing. Unlike the President of Egypt, Obama cannot even call it publicly Islamic terrorism. And also, like Roger Simon, the Obama's emotional and cultural attachment to Islam and his failure to adjust or accept Islamic terrorism and brutality explains his determination to whitewash the behavior of Iran and make a deal with the equally murderous, brutal Iran that will jeopardize the safety and security of the entire world. Now, I want to thank everyone for joining me. My email is contact@wdeanshook.com. You can join me on Facebook at WDeanShook. Twitter is WDeanShook. And you can get these full stories at the website WDeanshook.com. And as usual, when the dust settles and the smoke clears, I'll be back with another update of truth. I'll see you then.
You can get these full stories and more at WDeanshook.com. That's WDeanshook.com.